now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled Rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome and welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And this is Ben.
on Spoiled Rotten. And today, we are revisiting Spawn Season 1, a show I'd watched maybe a grand total of 7 minutes of over all the seasons, as it was kind of just on late at night when I was a kid.
A show that I have never watched because I was heavily policed as a kid with my TV watching and consumption.
I was not as heavily policed. There were certain shows I wasn't allowed to watch, and then kind of just trusted to adhere to that.
Yeah, I can definitely say that I understand why this was not allowed for me to watch, given its adult nature and all that kind of stuff. However, I can't say that my parents did the due diligence as well, because what they probably did was, we're not paying for HBO.
Yeah.
And that was very effective.
I think I just, as a kid, was like, this isn't fun. So I just never really watched. Like, I was like, it's fun, but it just doesn't seem fun.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that, especially because the animation style of the 90s is so similar that I instantly compare it to other properties that are a little bit more fun, like X-Men, at least with Jubilee and what she's doing and all that kind of stuff, as well as Batman and for all intents and purposes, and then the Justice League stuff. But this style of animation was, at first, really, really cool and nostalgic for me, but then I was like, I find I'm having a hard time taking this content a bit more seriously because of it.
Yeah. I have to say, my feelings haven't changed since I was a kid. I was kind of like, I'm just not having fun with this. I think, I mean, if people don't know, this season is, I think all the seasons are 6 episodes, but this 6-episode season is like, it is the movie, but somehow just feels like they should have just kept the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like these came out at the same year, so obviously it was being developed or whatever. So I'm not like, oh, they just copied this part from the movie. It's just more like, once you have both of them out, I'm hoping the season 2 is better, because obviously they got this out of their system. And then the whole time I was watching, I was just like, I don't know, a lot of people I respect say they love this show, and I'm just like, I'm glad we're doing it for Revisited, because of the lens is always like, we're not watching it and being like, oh, this was good for the time. We are like, no, like, knowing what we know now about how comic book stories can be told in different media, how do we feel about this? And I'm just like, I don't feel strongly about this.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I kind of feel like it's lazy that it basically, the movie and this are essentially the same, with this having a lot more breathing room and all that kind of stuff, and expanding, fleshing out the love story a little bit more, or at least not fleshing out the love story, but like
more. I don't even feel like it's I'll say this. I won't make any sweeping comments. I will just talk about how it made me feel, and I'm hoping actually that you feel differently and you feel better about the show. But I just didn't think the show was interested in Spawn as an action in the way, and I don't like the movie. The movie at least is like, you are on Al Simmons' journey and you care about what he cares, or at least that's the point. This is kind of just like, it felt like, well, you know the comics, this is what happened to him. And it doesn't feel as invested in him, which is weird since it's a TV show versus a movie.
Now that you say that, I definitely see your point. And I think I arrived to that conclusion in a different way. Thinking that, oh man, yeah, this Spawn is not really the centerpiece of this. And then in the latter episodes, when you start having the cops involved and all that kind of stuff, the detectives trying to figure out that whole, like,
Sam and Twitch.
Yeah, Sam and Twitch. When they start getting involved and it's really from their perspective more than anything else, I'm like, oh, this is what that pitched failed movie would have been like. That would have followed, I think, was Jeremy Renner, right? That was one of the cops or something like that, and it was like through their perspective.
It was
and Spawn was
Jamie Foxx was Spawn, and then I do know Jeremy Renner was attached to something, but I also know that Sam and Twitch was going to be a Kevin Smith show.
Okay.
So I don't know, like, if because that got scrapped when I guess whoever commissioned it got sold to somebody else.
Sure.
Even back then, so like just shrinking the amount of places people can tell stories. So that got scrapped. So I don't know if, yeah, like if Todd McFarlane was going to just take stuff from that um show and make his movie, because I feel like we've talked about it on this podcast. It felt like he was very intent on not really caring about Spawn as a full-fledged character and just being like the spooky thing that comes out of nowhere. And I'm like, why would you get Jamie Foxx for that? But anyway, yeah, this show, I was just like, I don't feel invested in anyone. What I will give it credit for is, at least in the last episode, I'm like, well, it feels like, yeah, like all the different storylines are coming together now. But even at 6 episodes, this feels like it took too much time.
I agree, and largely because I think from a season of television, there's no quote unquote big bad. There's no real fight, or anything like that. That's pulling everything together. Everything seems to be along the lines of like, oh, the internal fight is him finding his purpose, and without spending time on him to find his purpose, it feels weird.
And I agree with you that that's what's happening, but I feel like the show even points it out that like 4 episodes in, like, what's his name, like Cagliostro was just like, you're just sitting around doing nothing. Like, are you gonna pick a side or not?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, this is what I was feeling. I don't feel better that the show pointed out. I just like, well, so you knew it was a problem the whole time.
I'm glad you raised that, because it was definitely something that I thought when I saw it on screen. I was like, that's exactly how I feel. Like, do something, man. Like, what are you doing here? You're just kind of moping about, just being self-loathing, and I hate that.
Yeah,
it's
and
terrible.
then like in that scene is him being like, "You didn't even save that kid." He's like, "He didn't ask for help." I'm like, "Oh, like,
yeah,
I didn't even know that that was something you cared about." Like, then the guy's like, "Well, he's mute." I'm like, I wasn't paying attention, so I didn't know he was mute." But like, I'm just like, he's like, "That's his problem." I'm like, yeah, it is. How is that a response?
Yeah, it's I think this, he doesn't fully get a call to action for anything. He's just told that he's like, hey, by Violator, his, hey, I'm the one that's basically your supervisor from hell and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's not clear why he's on Earth. It's not clear why he came back. There's no call to action or any clarity, and Violator is just being
they do
Violator.
say in the first episode every reason why he came back, but as I said, since the show's not really invested in him as a character, it doesn't stick. But they do absolutely say, you're here because you made a deal so you could see Wanda again. That's your whole reason for being here, so you can see Wanda. And Clown Violator keeps saying, I know that's not the name, because he's Clown and Violator. He's constantly like, yeah, like, we held up our end of the bargain. We showed you Wanda. Now you got to do what we want you to do. So you're getting it from that end, and Cagliostro comes in so late, or for me, too late. He's narrating, but he never actually interacts with Spawn until like 2 or 3 episodes in.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, yeah, like, are you going to be a good guy or a bad guy? What are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm not that interested in him just based on. Also, I feel like after the first episode, maybe 2, you don't really see the mask. He's just always in silhouette. And I'm like, I don't know. It seems like you're just taking away all the cool parts. If that's what you wanted to do, is just be cool. You don't even show off Spawn looking cool that often. It's just shadow stuff.
It's a very interesting thing, because of course I feel like a lot of this is Todd McFarlane, and because of the animation, he's like, how do we make this darker than what the animation allows it to be? And I think his answer was, oh, let's put him in the shadows all the time, and let's just make it like an outline of a head and some like piercing dark eyes that in theory is scary. I'm like, yeah. However, again, because of the limitations of the animation, it wasn't. It was a good idea in theory, but execution wise, it was just like, okay, you just got an outline of a figure moving in the shadow now. That takes away from the coolness of his design, and that's the whole point of Spawn, as far as I'm concerned, is the artwork.
Well, I mean, I agree that from Todd McFarlane's point of view, who also gave us like I would say the iconic version of Venom as well. Like, you are looking for the style of it.
Mhm.
not necessarily the substance.
Mhm.
And this show doesn't really do that with Spawn. I mean, with any character really, but
Mhm.
definitely not with Spawn. As I said, after like the first couple of episodes,
Yep.
and yeah, I even as you were describing like stuff, I was just like, yeah, I just feel like I only knew exactly what Violator was talking about because I've seen the movie.
Mhm.
The show doesn't do a great job of like nailing down what's going on.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's a little too disparate, even in defining what his issue is. I know they say it out loud,
Mhm.
but then he doesn't really act on that. Like I think he has a couple of times of being sad, looking at Wanda like going to have sex or
Oh,
like
he's got a ton of times doing that.
yeah. But I just maybe I'm thinking it's like a couple times per episode. Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And like,
That sounds right.
but I'm like, I just feel like I don't. Okay, maybe you're dead. So, are you gonna do something about it? I feel like there's
Yeah,
not
what are you gonna do about
even
it?
the element of him going to talk to her, like, or being like, I can't like face her looking like this. He's
Right.
just, as we've already stated, just sad all the time and sticking to himself. And I'm like,
Hmm.
well, you got to do something.
Yeah.
I feel like to your point, you don't know really what he wants because he doesn't he doesn't act on the fact that he could like nothing's stopping him from talking to Wanda
Hmm.
other than him being like I look gross. But
Yep.
I feel like in the movie, at least that's a beat in the movie of him being like,
Hmm.
"Oh no, I'm too ugly." Like
Hmm.
I would scare her if
Hmm.
I saw it. I don't feel that from this Spawn. He's just like hanging out in that alley. And the other thing Cagliostro brings up, which is like you keep protecting these people and then getting mad at them when they're like, like,
Yes.
are you gonna do? So
You gotta
like, are you
choose a
working for?
side. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I don't like him in this, and I know it's just for the time, but I'm like, I didn't like the homophobia either. Like, it's
Yeah.
just like, in general, I didn't like the sex stuff. But I was just kind of like, I don't,
I feel like the sex stuff was there just to be edgy, to be perfectly honest.
there's the assassin guy who you're like, okay, he can't even enjoy this because he's so traumatized. But
Hmm.
up until that point, I was like, I don't need this in a cartoon for whatever, like for whatever reason. I'm just like, I don't want this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I should say one thing. I should, because I really need to correct myself. I heard what I said as I said it, and then you started talking, so I wasn't able to do this. The whole point of Spawn isn't just the art. The whole point of that's one of the strongest features of
Yeah,
Spawn, in my opinion. That's what I meant to say. But yeah, the misogyny, the way they write women,
like they
it's
use
it's
the F word in
very
it. They're
yeah,
like,
it's
and
and
I'm
the
just like,
way
oh,
women are just like just used as sex objects or just like killed without like second thought and all that kind of stuff. The only female character that gets any kind of like screen time is Wanda, his wife, right? And that's just
which
because
I
like
feel like she gets more than the movie. So that's I guess
yes,
that's another bonus,
it is a
which is
big bonus
she's
here.
at the head of an actual like legal like a trial.
Versus the movie really makes it feel like it's just like, hey, there's this love triangle going on, all this kind of situation. It's more focused on that as opposed in many ways, like really is more misogynistic towards Wanda because of that than this, where it's like, yeah, she's a lawyer, she's doing pro bono work, and she's really hustling to find out this whole like child killing thing
Yeah,
in the whole setting.
and again, I kind of watch these in a daze. The do they explain exactly how long he's been away, or was there any kind of as in
Yes.
they do
Yes.
say
There
is it a
is
year?
dialogue that says 5 years.
5 years? Okay,
Yeah.
because I was like, I don't know. She seems like really into the friend
Yep.
who definitely has a name, Terry.
Yep.
But I was like, what's the turnaround time here? Because I couldn't remember even from the movie. Like, is there something wrong with him? Like, is he a bad guy, or
Mhm.
did they just find love together? Because and obviously it must have been a while since the kid isn't a baby, so obviously it must have been a while
Yeah.
that they were together.
Mhm. In this, it's because in I think the movie, it's a little bit less clear whether or not the kid is Al, like Spawn's biological kid,
No, I
or
think they definitely say it's
do they?
Lana's kid.
Oh, okay.
I think
I'm glad that I'm glad you clarified that for me. But here Violator makes fun of him. It's like it's not even your kid and all this kind of
because
stuff,
he
and I'm
does the
like,
same thing in the movie.
yeah, yeah, he does. But it's just one of those things where I'm like, okay, it's it's a weird situation that he's in. That obviously he came back from death, but it's the aside from the fact that it's like you can't recognize that your wife has every right to move on 5 years after the fact, and you're like you're not processing this whatsoever, which is fine because that's a story that he wants to tell. He's like sad, loathing. But to me, I'm like, this is bad. I don't
Hmm.
like watching this.
Yeah.
It's really, really uninteresting. And it's just like, okay, well, and here's the other thing too. If the deal was, and that's why he's on Earth, was like, oh yeah, you could see Wanda. Why is Violator letting him stick around that long? He's
This is
kept up
exactly what I
that,
was
yeah,
in the movie. That's why I said like it feels too long,
yes,
even though it's only 6 episodes. Because in the movie, and that's what I keep giving caveats. I'm saying I hope the other two seasons are better because you can just
yes,
get away from comparing it to the movie.
yep,
But like in this season, I'm just like in the movie, it's pretty quickly the clown is like, "Oh, I'm gonna fuck you up because you're not following the rules."
yeah, yeah,
In this, he's like, "No, I'm gonna turn into the Violator one time,
hmm
and it won't really mean anything."
right.
And then I'll still just kind of be like, "Hey, are you gonna be a bad guy or not?" And I'm like, why is he? Why are you allowing this to happen?
Yeah, why is this even happening? It's in the movie, it's very immediate. It's like, oh, you want to stay here? You want to go back on our deal? Screw you, coming at you. And I'm
Yeah,
like, this one, he's like, okay, you're really doing a bad job supervising, managing Spawn and all that kind of stuff. Because again, it was like, yeah, Spawn got to see Wanda already. And you should have pulled him back pretty quickly
hmm
after that. What's the deal with like, oh yeah, we're just gonna chill in this like alley and all that kind of stuff? Like,
and
it's
doesn't
weird.
he like he turns into like that priest at some point?
Yes, he does.
And I'm like, what is this? What are you doing other
Yeah,
than like, the, I don't even get what the end game for that is. Like,
neither do I.
was
It's just
Spawn gonna be like, yeah, that's a
gross.
good idea? Like, that still doesn't get him doing evil things.
No, it doesn't.
Like, it would just have him allow you to do that. I don't get. I didn't really understand that point where, or that plot point where he turned into the clown. I'm like, what? Why?
Yeah,
I thought
it's
it was just another bad guy. Like, because
yeah.
every episode there's like a new bad guy, kind of, and they all kind of accumulate over time. They don't go away. But
Mhm.
then when this priest turned out to be the clown, I was like, I don't understand what this is. That just seems like if you could do this, you could just keep doing your own thing.
Yeah, because
You don't need Spawn if this is what you're capable of doing.
yeah, 100%. And my big thing is like I was thinking, I'm like, okay, is this McFarlane trying to make criticism towards the Catholic Church and child abuse in the Catholic Church and all that kind of stuff? And I'm like, no, he turns back on it real fast because it's not a priest, it's
No, it's
Violator.
yeah.
And I'm just like, so what? You're just invoking imagery. I think you described Todd Phillips as an edge lord, and I would be like, yeah, I would apply the same term to
Todd
McFarlane in
McFarlane, yeah.
this, in the sense where I'm like, yeah, you're being provocative in your imagery and all this kind of stuff. You're definitely eliciting a response, but then you go back on it real fast, and I'm like, yeah, you're not saying
Well,
anything
that's
then.
why I didn't even try to correct you when you said the point of Spawn is the styles, because I'm like, that is what I assume you're gonna get from Todd
Yeah,
McFarlane is
yeah,
style over substance. Like, it would be nice if that wasn't the main point, because I mean, this show definitely made me be like, yeah, I guess I'm just not a Spawn guy, because I would imagine maybe people just remember the whole series and don't really think about the first season, but I've heard
sure.
nothing but good things about it, and I was just like, I did not like this.
Yeah,
This was not for me.
yeah, nostalgia's a hell of a drug for sure.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's that, but I'm also just like, maybe it does get really good, and you just because it's only 18 episodes, you just don't really care about the bad first season.
Maybe. We'll see. But in my opinion, I think Spawn really has a cool concept. I think there's a
Yes, I
really,
agree.
really cool concept of Spawn of the idea of like what happens if your powers are limited, right? And then you have that counter at the beginning of every single episode getting lower and lower and lower. But that's not actually like, unless I missed it, which is very possible, that it's never explained. Like, yeah, there's a limit to how much you can use your power. Like when I played the video game, it was freaking cool because as much as you use your power in the beginning, that's basically your entire life bar to the end. And
Mm-hmm.
there are codes that allow you to get to different levels and all that kind of stuff. And if you enter the code, the game automatically
Takes off.
reduces your life to they think it should be. So you're not actually cheating or getting by or anything like that. It's just as difficult as if you were to play the whole thing through. And I think that concept from a gaming standpoint, but from also a storytelling standpoint, to be like, here are the consequences towards using your actions, is that they're limited. And after this, we don't really know what happens when you reach zero. Does hell get a new hell spawn that comes out
I would
of the
imagine yes,
mix?
because
Or
I would
yeah,
imagine yes, because otherwise they wouldn't need to keep recruiting.
that's true.
But what I'm like, you just reminded me that's definitely a key part of Spawn,
Mhm.
and I didn't even know what the counter was at the end of each episode. I was just like, "Is that a date? That doesn't look like a date. I
No,
don't care."
no,
I would genuinely just be like, "Oh yeah, I don't care."
it's
And then,
literally a countdown of his power, and it's so arbitrarily like consumed. Like in the video game, and the reason why I bring up the video game is I really enjoyed the video game. It was
mm-hmm,
really cool concept, but the goal is like each move has a different amount of power usage.
mm-hmm,
And so if you keep spamming like the superpower, then you're like, yeah, guess what? You get to zero real fast. Versus if you spawn like, here's a Hadouken, like small little fireball, then it lasts a lot longer. So you ration it out that way, and it's really cool. But here I'm like, and I don't think this should be the case, but the fact that maybe there could have been a counter at the like at the bottom every time he uses powers, it goes down a little bit, but then it wouldn't be clear in that regard either. Because it's this weird
I
arbitrary
just watched
counter for
six
no
episodes
reason.
and didn't even remember that was a thing, and I'm sure they explained it. It completely went out of my head. I did not
Right.
know that's what was going on,
Hmm.
and maybe I guess I'm just gonna keep punting the next season. Like maybe that's when it's like fully like, oh yeah, you just used too much power before.
Hmm.
Um, but this season, I'm like, it does not factor in
No.
because he's already not really willing to help. It
Hmm.
doesn't really matter that
Hmm.
he's draining his power.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm reading into this appropriately because I've never seen this, but the fact that there's three seasons, I don't know if each season is meant to be an act of a bigger story and all that kind of stuff. Because to me, I'm like, maybe it was pitched that way, maybe it was marketed that way, and maybe that's why I'm seeing it like this. But to me, I'm like, this whole season feels like Act One,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes for a terrible story, like a season of television. Because like you have to have, in my opinion, like a very clear finale and then something building up. Like even Titans does a decent job of this. It's like,
Of
here's the
wrapping
big
up
bad.
something, yeah.
Exactly. Their timelines being what they are, that's a separate issue. But to me, I'm like, there's nothing wrapped up in this. The only thing that gets done is like, oh, okay, you used your powers for good, and that good arguably being a somewhat selfish thing. You're not defending all children, you're defending this child because this child is the child of your former lover.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm like, are you off the sidelines? Are you off the bench? Or are you just still like gonna go
Well, he
back to,
found
no, I'm
someone to
gonna
care
protect my
about.
family? Yeah.
Even I didn't. I was looking up like how frequently the show came out, but it does look like you're pretty much waiting a year in between seasons,
So
which I feel like
traditional
by
TV
'90s,
stuff, yeah.
no, because like in '90s it would be like you have a break for the fall or the summer, and then you come back to a new season. So that I mean, animation I get is different, but it does feel like yeah, that would be unsatisfying to
Mm-hmm.
be like 6 episodes and now I gotta wait a year.
Yep. Feels terrible.
Um, I was like, you know what? Maybe if this happened all within a year and a half, I would it'd be like that's fine that they did it
Mm-hmm.
this way. But it is like, yeah, you have to wait a year in a climate where that's not really the case. Like that's not
Mm-hmm.
normal.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's not what's like that's not par for the course.
No, you're definitely right. In the 90s, it was like what a season of television meant 24 episodes. And it
And
meant
then you
like,
take 2 months off, and then
yep,
they get there's the next one.
yep,
And I don't know what animation was like. If I'm being honest, I'm sure I could look it up, but like
sure.
that obviously has a longer turnaround time.
Hmm.
but this is only 6 episodes. Like you're still doing like 1920 Simpsons episodes.
Yeah.
For yeah, and these are only a few minutes longer than the Simpsons episode.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So to me, I'm like, was it pitched as season one as Act One? Because that's exactly how
Makes
it feels
sense.
like to me. And I guess we won't know until we start seeing season two and three, which is me being like, yeah, I hope season two really picks up this thing because this is not good storytelling. This is a whole lot of nothing. It's a whole lot of, hey, we have this character and this character might be cool in the future, but like ultimately it's like, oh, we just introduced them in the fifth episode and then we're not mentioning them again in episode six. Like there was that one hunter woman that was like, "Oh, how dare you not let me go
Yeah,
after
with
this
the Spawn
hellspawn?"
earrings, right? And I
Yeah,
feel like she's in the movie as well.
yeah, and I'm just like, why introduce her like now? It doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, introduce her in season two and make that like a driving force for the season. You know what I mean? It just feels weird.
Very weird. So yeah, I know no one really cares, but I just looked it up. So like season 1 of Simpsons ends May 1990, and then they're already back in October of 1990 for
Yeah,
season 2. So it is this like summer break, and then you're back.
yeah.
Um, and that was 89, 90. Like so,
Hmm.
obviously there was something set up there,
Hmm.
a precedent.
Hmm. Yeah,
Anyway, yeah,
I mean,
I'm done
the
thinking about how it was released, but I just wanted to make sure I wasn't like completely off, and like Simpsons had like 2 years in between seasons.
I don't think you're completely off. I think you're dead on the money here. And I think it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, maybe it's because it's HBO because we are comparing Fox to HBO,
Yeah,
which you know, Fox being a more traditional televisor and all that kind of stuff versus HBO definitely taking a different approach towards television back in the 90s and all that kind of stuff, right? And still to this day. But at the gist of it, maybe it was just not well established what the whole HBO goal was at that point in time in regards to their animated stuff. And maybe they were just like, Spawn's more adult, so we're gonna put it on HBO, and that's about it.
yeah. I mean, another good thing is it's Keith David as Spawn, but it does still
Yes.
feel like a waste of Keith David.
Oh, I love Keith David. The moment I heard, I'm like, oh, this is good. We got Keith David on here. We're good. I'm happy. But you're right. He doesn't get to do much because he's all loathing and like, ooh,
Which
I'm
is,
sad.
as I keep hinting at, like it does feel like that's Todd McFarlane's take, is that you don't really get a lot of Spawn, but that feels not the right approach.
Yeah. And here's the funny thing. Like, this is one of those things where I'm like, yeah, yeah, I can see why making Spawn the main character would force him to actually grow as a human being. And I'm like, or whatever you would call Spawn, but it
Mm-hmm.
would force him to have to deal with emotions and grow. And I don't think McFarlane's interested in that.
No,
I think it's just
clearly
like,
not.
yeah,
Based on his
let's
interviews about what he wants to do with the movie, like
yeah,
clearly not
right.
what he's interested
It's
in.
weird.
But like even to that point, it doesn't seem that he's that invested in Sam and Twitch either. Like
No,
they
it's not.
operate just like the side characters they are. It's not like
Yeah.
I watch it, I'm like, oh, he secretly wants to just work with those guys.
Hmm. No.
It's just like, yeah, everyone feels like a side character.
Yes. Even Spawn
Oh
in
yeah,
his own show.
well, like especially small.
Especially Spawn in his own show.
um, yeah, yeah. I mean, was I also the other thing I haven't talked about yet, which I remembered as a kid to
Mhm.
this, was that Todd McFarlane introduces each episode, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, the first episode is the hardest. I feel like I'm just like, you're not good at this, and
Yeah.
I don't know if they recorded them all in one day and he just got better as he went along, but it's just like I don't like. I told you, like it felt like on the first one, it looks like he's looking off camera for like he's trying to make it look cool, but I'm like, no, you don't need to look off. Like you're looking at something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it looked like looking for lines, but I don't think. I also don't think that's the right way to set people up for this show
Hmm.
and constantly. being there and like
It's weird.
working on the comic and then being
Hmm.
like, well, what would you do if your best friend was with your woman? I'm like, I don't just play the show. I don't need this. This is
Yeah.
because that feels childish and it's not a kid show.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
It feels like, oh yeah, like we need Mr. Dress Up or what's his name, Mr.
Mrs.
Rogers, to like
Rogers,
introduce this segment, and it's like,
or
no,
that whoever that person with lamb chops playing along is.
yeah,
Yeah.
but also like it feels like Tales from the Crypt, which I guess isn't particularly a kid show, but it feels
Oh,
more
that's a good
teen
comparison.
adjacent.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
It doesn't feel as adult as this clearly wants to be.
Yes. Hmm.
It feels like you are trying to make it feel more general audience.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, so I will say to our audience, you and I were texting about this, and you're like, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on his acting. And I'm like, oh, I wonder why. And then I watched the first episode. I'm like, I do not think much of his acting. And then, and then, because you're right, he looks off camera, he does this, and I'm just like, oh man, this feels like you're trying to be mysterious and
Hmm.
seductive, but it's not working. And this just feels like it's a bad direction kind of idea. And to me, the big like there's a huge jump between episode 1 and 2. I'm like, oh, he's doing much better in episode
Hmm.
2. And then it's completely just flat the rest of the time. Like there's no more improvement after that. To me, it's a weird choice to use the same B-roll of him animating the same thing
Hmm.
for every single episode. I'm like, okay, well, if you're gonna really highlight that, because I think that is something that might have been cool, maybe have different B-roll drawing different comic book panels and all that kind of stuff. I think that would have been a little bit more interesting. But I'll be perfectly honest with you. I think one of the biggest concerns, or from a direction standpoint, I'm like, why did they let him sit down? Make him stand up, make him do something. Like it's weird that he's sitting down. He has this like, oh, I'm gonna ask a weird philosophical question, and then oh, that's what this episode is about, and then go back to drawing the same B-roll. I'm like, that's a weird
I
decision.
feel like if he stands, then it's gonna be too much like unsolved crimes or something like that, and
I'm fine with that
it
because it works in unsolved crimes and all that kind of stuff.
different types of show, and I I'm thinking that's not what he wants. I think he would
Mhm.
know. Oh, I'll just look like that guy, and I'm gonna do it my way.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. But I'm just like, it's the whole sitting down thing to me. I'm like, if he's trying to draw mystery, then why have his body position be in a closed off space? You know what I mean? It's just like stand up, do something, like use your body a little bit more. But McFarlane isn't an actor, and
Yeah,
this is why I'm like I'm glad that you're saying what you're saying because I'm like it's not good. It's something that really it's a device that really cheapens up the rest of the episode, and to me
and
takes
he
it out
does
because
like
I'm
his
like,
tagline at the end. He's like, "It's Spawn, so turn off your lights." I'm like, "What?"
yeah,
Again, you're not talking to kids.
yeah,
I mean, you are. Like I was watching it as a kid, but
sure,
you shouldn't be positioning it that way
yeah.
for a show like this.
Hmm. Hmm. Because I mean, because I was watching the darker realm of television around that point in time with Buffy and Angel and all those kind of things that were considered to be more teen, more adult,
Hmm.
but because I was young before being a teen, so these shows were before my time. And then this is something that if I had the access to, I probably would have clicked with it. And then now revisiting it, I would have cringed at myself to be like, oh no, I thought this guy was actually deep. He's just this guy that tries
Yeah,
to sound deep, but actually doesn't have a lot of good thought.
I think that's the other. Maybe that is what I was trying to get at. Is that
Hmm.
it's like this pseudo intellectual thing that I don't think would work on most adults.
Yes.
And this is, and I don't mean that this show is too smart for kids, but it's just like, as I said, I didn't have a parent saying you can't watch that. Like, it made
Hmm.
like I don't think they knew it existed, or if they did, they're like, whatever. He already saw the movie in theaters. I just on my own accord was like, this isn't interesting to me. I don't want to watch it.
Hmm.
And so you don't have, yeah, it just feels like you're trying to play both sides by being like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, like this only works if your brain isn't fully developed, but also it's not for people who are that young.
It's true. It's very, very true. Because yeah, they were definitely going for the mid to late teens angry grunge kind of demographic there. And that's not a demographic that I consider to be hugely philosophical, which would have been like they would have been engaged with this.
Hmm.
It would have been effective, but I'm sure a lot of those people, as adults looking back at this, I'm like, part of you has to recognize that that was cheesy as hell.
Yeah, I'm interested. Is probably not the right word, but I do want to know how the whole series plays out, just because of the how lauded it is from people I actually know, and even when I look it up on IMDb and it's got an 8 out of 10, I'm like, yeah, like it has to get better.
I genuinely hope so. I genuinely hope so. Um, because 8 out of 10 is very generous for this.
I mean, I should take into consideration that maybe only people who really care about it rated on
Sure.
IMDb. It's not like
Yes.
there's a critic score,
Hmm.
but still, like 8 just makes me feel like it has to be somewhat good.
Yeah.
It can't just be that. Yeah, like almost 11,000 people rated it, and the average is 8 out of 10.
And see, this is the thing why I really, really question these kind of rating systems, these open source rating systems, because I'm like, you and I critique things based on story writing structure and all that kind of stuff. And then there's yeah, the effects are cool and all that. But we're looking at whether or not this is a well-told story.
Hmm.
And this is not a well-told story. This is a part of a story. And that is, again, not a good season of television, in my opinion. So when those people like it and they're giving it an 8 out of 10, I'm not sure if it's like just because like, oh, I love Spawn and I'm so glad to see it on TV and like hear Spawn's voice and this is exactly what like I'm glad that that's what they got out of it if that's what they're thinking. But to me, I'm like, you can't tell me this is well written because it's not a complete season. It
Well, I
is
mean, that 8
Act
out of 10 is
One.
for the whole series, not just season
Oh,
one.
the whole here. Oh,
Yeah.
that's different. Okay, that I will reserve until I see the whole series. But to me, I'm like season one, 8 out of 10, because that's what I thought you were saying.
No, no, no.
That
I'm just
no, there's no
saying the
way.
fact that it has an 8 out of 10 obviously means that people liked the series.
Yes, yeah. And that's fine. It could very well, and I think you and I have both been very, very good at saying, like, yeah, just based on this, like, we can only hope that season two and three get better.
Hmm.
So I think we are aligned
It's
in that.
a lot of people saying this is epic, the best adult animation they've ever seen,
Yikes. Yikes. And that's
one of
rude
the
coming
greatest
out.
animated series ever made. To be clear, like I'm not like these aren't critics; these are just people voicing their
Yeah,
opinions.
yeah,
So I'm not like here to laugh at it. It's just, um, it's not just people being like, "Yeah, it's pretty good." It's
yeah.
people really going to bat for it.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird because, like, to me, around that era, probably the best adult animation was probably heavy metal.
Mm,
And I really enjoyed heavy metal as a kid, but that's because, prepubescent boys and imagery and all that kind of stuff. And
yeah,
same thing with this. I'm like, that's a boob. That's pretty awesome.
yeah. There's a lot of boobs in this for
Yeah.
sure.
So I'm like, yeah, I can see why I would have liked it around that age, but not for the reasons that you and I are critiquing it for. But yeah, it definitely was building off this whole what does adult animation look like, and this is just not a complete season.
No, it is not. I don't even know. Like, oh, Overkill is the other assassin, right? The guy with the like white paint on his face. That
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That guy that was
because
in
I'm like,
Nom.
this is cool. Like, is he gonna do something? And then he
Yeah,
just gets sidelined.
he does. He does.
I was like, oh, all right.
And I did like that flashback to the Vietnam War and all that
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff. And he's like that was really, really effective to me and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's very interesting what Todd McFarlane's trying to do, but doesn't fully ever get there. Because I'm like, you're using all this imagery without actually making a statement. And that's kind of brutal.
So he doesn't. uh have writing credits on it. It's just that he created Spawn.
Sure.
Alan B. McElroy, a black person, and
Mm-hmm.
it matters to people, is actually the person who developed it for television.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to know. Obviously, there's other people who wrote on the show,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm interested to know what that looked like with Todd, and if he decided like I'm gonna give up on the movie and let them do what they're doing, but I can control the TV show,
Mm-hmm.
or if he just came in at the end to do the like, I guess they're not bookends, but the intros,
Mm-hmm.
um, because it does feel stunted in this first season.
Yeah.
Um, that's all I'll say about that. I'm just like, unfortunate that it was not Tom McFarlane, because
Mm-hmm.
I would have hoped a black person would have had a bit more insight and a, a take on what to do with this when you're dealing with stuff like heaven and hell and a black
Mm-hmm.
person's soul. And it doesn't really seem like that made it to the screen, regardless of what he developed ahead of time.
Yeah. I hate to agree with you on that, but yeah, there's no characteristic here that was like, oh, this is done by a person that really understands the nuances of being black and in these kind of situations. Like there's nothing that really screams to me like that.
No, like even the fact that they committed to having Terry be black in this and he's white
Hmm.
in the movie, I'm like, he might as well have been white. I don't like. There
Yeah.
was nothing. They didn't do anything with the fact that three main characters are black, and
Mhm.
I mean, I wasn't happy that it was a white woman doing the voice of the black girl.
Yeah. I mean, and this is
As in the
probably
kid Cyan. I don't mean Wanda. I wouldn't call Wanda a girl.
right. And to me, I'm like, I is this coming out of the era where the goal in America was color blindness to a race more than anything else? I don't know if there's a product of that. It kind of feels like it is,
Well, I just mean
but
it's HBO, right? Like,
yeah,
so to your point, it's not Fox. They don't have to really worry about that kind of stuff.
that's true. That's true.
This is the home of The Sopranos, The Wire,
Hmm.
The Corner.
Sure.
So, yeah, I can't really cut them that slack.
That's fair, but I mean, and you'll know this better than I do, but like the shows that you just listed, do they have black directors and black writers?
Yeah, I
And
mean they have black directors. I would imagine.
I can
What's his
only
name?
imagine The Wire would be, yeah,
No,
for
The Wire
sure.
is a white writer.
Right.
What's his name? David
But I mean, a
something.
director for each individual episode and all that stuff.
Yeah, he didn't direct every episode.
Gotcha.
Um, but yeah, I would. My point of bringing them up is, or even Oz, which like these are shows that I, not The Wire, but
Mhm.
the shows that I believe predate Spawn being on there. So it's not like this would have been the like groundbreaking one that uses
Mhm.
race in an effective way.
Mhm. Yeah, that's fair. Um, yeah, and it's pretty interesting how it's a black character that, from my perspective, seems to be uh really adored by a predominantly white audience. You know what I mean?
I mean, he is masked up and doesn't actually have to be black. Like I
Yes.
just remember as a kid
Mhm.
when the movie came out, I'm like, what? Has Spawn always been black, or did they change him to black for the movie? Like
Mhm.
because I'd seen images and I was just like, to that point, I was like, also the same reason that Spider-Man is so loved
Mhm.
is because when you've got that mask on, you don't really have to engage with who's behind that mask.
Yep.
You can just be like, that's me.
Yeah.
I
I'm
am
Spider-Man.
that. I am that. Yeah.
I'm not black, I'm OJ.
Yeah. Well, it's a different idea, but
Yeah, I know.
I think yeah, Spawn can just be the edge lord thing for you if that's what you're into,
Right.
and you don't. And I'm not even saying the movie does it better. Like it is a character that is not really engaging in what it would mean for this person to be black
Mhm.
over any other
Mhm.
race.
Yeah.
He's just is black, and I've heard black people complain, and I used to think it was an annoying complaint, but then when I rewatched the movie, I was like, I get it, which is just like why did he have to burn in hell? And then like when he comes back, you never actually get to see him as a black person. He's just
Mhm.
burnt and stripped of his literally stripped of his blackness.
Yeah, the biggest thing about the movie, I guess, would be I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe that is the black experience to be a soldier and then used as a pawn and all that kind of stuff. But I'm like, is that exclusively a racial thing or is that just true for all soldiers? You know what I mean? And
It's
and
true for he was more a soldier than he was a black person in the
right.
movie for sure.
Ex- Yeah. And that's what I mean is like, okay, is there a point to making him black at all? Because it really
And
doesn't
on
feel
one hand,
like
I like that they're just like, yeah, he's black, but
yeah.
on the other hand, I'm like, yeah, but they don't really do anything with it. And
And
there are the what
mhm,
I do now think are legitimate complaints that it's like he's black, but only before he spawned,
yeah,
realistically.
once he spawned, he spawned. He's
Yeah,
not black anymore. And to me, I'm like, why do that? Like, what is the purpose of that, Todd McFarlane? Like, you're based, and this is why I bring up the whole like, is this a product of the whole color blindness era? But then you were like, yeah, no, because Oz, and then this, and then I'm like, yeah, so what the hell, McFarlane? Like, why tell a
I mean,
story of a black character without engaging in the black culture? I don't get it.
I mean, maybe he was just like, I'll get in because he's black. He's not like everyone else, but
Maybe.
it's uh, I guess maybe it's unfair of me to hope that the show and the movie would do something that the comic doesn't do. And I haven't read the comic, so I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't
Mhm.
know how engaged, but it does feel like from listening to Todd McFarlane talk that the comic isn't truly engaged in him as a human.
Yeah,
It's just like, nah, he's just Hellspawn.
I would be very
Still,
surprised if
he's
that
a
was the
monster
case.
in the shadows that
Yeah.
comes out.
Yeah, I would be very, very surprised if that was the case. Like, very surprised.
Yeah, so maybe I shouldn't be like, oh, come the show doesn't do this, but
Hmm.
I think, um, especially as we've talked about,
Mhm.
um, what was strong about the first few MCU Disney Plus shows was when you're able to do a TV show like this 6 episode season or which is what they were doing, you
Mhm.
can really like hyper focus and elevate the character or at
Mhm.
least give people the time to be like, oh yeah, I guess I do care about this character and like them.
Mhm.
But this show, this season, is all I could
Mhm.
gave you less of Spawn than the movie,
Mhm.
and it's probably like a good hour or 2 hours longer than the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, like we kind of figured out, it's like, okay, yeah, because Wanda gets much more to do in this. But at the same time, it's a full season of Spawn without Spawn being the main character, which is
Or at
why.
least picking what he wants to do, which
Sure.
again, the movie, he's very like, I do not care about this. I made a deal to see Wanda, and that's my thing. And then he gets
Hmm.
upset when he's like, I can't see Wanda like this. And I get that the movie is decidedly not as adult as the show, but it's like
Hmm.
I liked that he had a relationship with Cyan and the dog, like that
Yeah.
he's like, I can still be because then you can realize like that's him trying to keep his humanity. It's the same idea as like a RoboCop type thing, like
Hmm.
similarly brutalized and killed off and then comes back and trying to hold on to bits of humanity. This is just like I feel like the show has to call it out that like you're not doing anything, you're just hiding in the shadows, but
Yeah.
it says that while you're like, I know, but he is helping sometimes, but it's very inconsistent, so I don't
Mhm.
really know what he's getting at.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like they say, it's like, hey, you're helping or hurting, pick a side kind of deal.
Yeah. So it doesn't yeah, I didn't have much confidence in the writing for this season because I'm like, I don't like
Hmm.
it just feels like they want to show cool things or edgy things.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think if there's any grace to be offered here, it's just like maybe perhaps this is coming from an era where they didn't really know how to successfully do comic book characters in this media format. And because comic books just keep going, right? It maybe that's the case, but to me, I'm like, no. Then why do I keep walking away from this season feeling like this is Act One of a movie?
I mean, there's the other show I saw that I do think comes out in '95 is The Max,
Okay.
and even as a kid, I liked watching that because I felt for him. Like I
Mm,
cared about the Max. They gave me an entry point for him, and I
mhm,
do feel like that's different. Like I feel like Max and Spawn are similar because it's comic book type stuff, but it's not Batman or Superman where you're
mhm,
like, yeah, we know how to do this. Um, and so yeah, I'm just kind of like, I don't know, like there are examples across different formats of TV of doing this the right way.
mhm,
So this just feels like, as I said, maybe they really are doing a faithful Spawn adaptation, and
mhm.
the Spawn fans came out and supported it.
Maybe.
And I'm just not a Spawn. And as I'm saying, maybe I'm not because I don't like the movie particularly, and I didn't like this first season.
Yeah.
And I guess what I keep dancing around is it just feels like this is how Todd McFarlane wants Spawn to be seen. I'm talking about the TV show, not the movie.
Mhm,
I feel like this is how he wants him to operate.
mhm,
So I can't even be like, oh, it's the execs getting in the way, and they didn't. Um, because even if the person I mentioned, who actually developed it, Alan B. McElroy, like maybe
mhm,
if he had something that was um more to bite your teeth in, or like more to sink your teeth into,
mhm.
it still feels like it would be Todd McFarlane being like, no, that's not what I want to do.
Right.
And I'm just basing that off of what I've seen and his interviews talking
Sure.
about Spawn.
Sure.
So I
Um,
could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen less interviews than you have, because I'm just like, especially after seeing those like intro things that he does, I'm like, I have no desire to see Todd McFarlane speak about anything because
Yeah,
this is clearly a guy that has been overindulged in regards to how deep he thinks he is, and I'm like, you're not that deep, dude, because you're asking questions but doing a terrible job of actually exploring them. Like, what the
the,
hell?
I do feel that like he'll set something up in the intro, and I'm like, I didn't feel that was in any way explored really in the
Right?
show. It
Right?
was like, oh yeah, that's what he's talking about, but I feel like I already knew that before the episode started, based
Yeah.
on what happened in the last episode.
Yeah. And so like and there's that one episode where it's like what would you do if your best friend and your wife were getting together and you had to watch? I'm like, is this a scenario that one can relate to, that you're dead for 5 years, you come back and you're just like this weird voyeuristic creep that's like that's not an actual exploration of that question, because this is a scenario that's like, oh, so you're telling me the best friend's dead, and the best friend and the wife got together through a trauma bond of mutually losing Al Simmons. And I'm like, no, that makes perfect sense to me. Why would that be a hard thing for people to understand and digest?
Well, I do think that the show is exploring choices,
Yeah,
um, and what makes you a good person or bad person based on your choices.
sure.
But as I said, I don't really feel like they got there until the last episode, and I don't even
Mhm.
think that was done well. But I could at least be like, okay, everything's coming together now.
Yeah,
Um, so I still agree with you that he brings up questions that aren't truly explored in that episode, so that all might just be something that could have been a DVD extra, like of him just talking about like the themes he wanted to explore.
sure.
Because
Yeah,
yeah, like
because that would be
what would you
fine.
do if your best friend was with your wife? It's just like you just have to deal with it. Like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah, like that
and it
shit
doesn't
happens
feel
all the
like that's
time.
something that Spawn is struggling with. He's just like, oh no, I lost Wanda. He's not like, I can't believe it's my best friend. Oh, like
Yes.
he's just like, oh man,
Oh,
Wanda,
yeah,
no.
that sucks. Oh no, I had this love. Oh no. That's it. That's it.
And that's why
You're
in the last episode, at least he finally is like, hey, Cyan, give the ring to your mom or whatever.
Right.
And it's like, okay, now he's on their radar. And again, you've already pointed out. So then it feels like a first act thing, not a complete story.
Yeah. It's just it's not great. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, you got off the sidelines. But again, you're not doing anything for anyone that you're not directly involved with. So you're still at the end of the day being very, very selfish. And to me, I'm like, okay, the first episode, he goes like, "What would you do if you were dying and like offered the choice to lead Hell's army and to come back to life? What would you do?" And I'm like, y'all didn't even show that. Y'all didn't even show him dying and then the violator or whoever making the deal and like that being a difficult
I
thing.
mean, they do show him dying a lot, but it's always like snippets of it,
Yeah,
and it doesn't feel directly connected to what's going on in the
yeah,
moment. Uh, But yeah, you're right about Violator being the one that has to explicitly say, "Oh, you're here because you made a deal for Wanda."
yeah,
That's you don't get you remove Al Simmons from that choice.
yeah.
Again, as I said, it's as much as I don't think the movie is good.
Mhm.
A bonus it has is that it deeply roots you in what Al Simmons wants and
Yes.
the pain he feels physically and emotionally from being burnt to death and losing the love of his life.
Yep. Yep.
This show is just like, yeah, you told me that, and I see him crying, but he doesn't even seem to care about the actual circumstances for this lost life. He's just kind of like,
Mhm.
this just sucks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so do you have an opinion on any of the particulars here? Like, she has a kid, you wanted a kid, it's your best friend. Do you even want to have a moment of being jealous about that or like
Mhm.
make a bad decision based on that? No, just gonna cry. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. It's weird. It's weird. And I think there's like certain things that especially when you watch back at on as an adult that you really start to realize things very, very differently. Like as a kid, I used to think Pierce Brosnan in Mrs. Doubtfire was the bad guy, and then now I watch it and I'm like, no, he's a great stepdad. What are we talking about here? He's present in the kids' lives. He doesn't do anything bad. It's just a bad situation
Mm-hmm.
for Robin Williams. And I'm like, why did I think he was a bad guy as a kid? Because he's clearly a good stepdad as a like as an adult right
But
now.
that's because, well, there's the star power of Robin
Yes.
Williams, but
Yes.
the writing is such that you don't even realize you're watching someone who was the actual problem.
Yeah.
The writing is effective. Maybe people don't think it's good, but it's effective because you're like, well, yeah, let him have his kids back. Like you can't leave him. He's the fun
Hmm.
guy. Um, which I think kids and older people felt while
Yeah.
watching it, right? So
Hmm.
like, but that only comes because it's invested in the characters. Like you
Hmm.
are invested in Daniel's issue, right? Like
Hmm.
you're like, you saw how he wanted to make his kid's birthday fun, but obviously because it's I like Mrs. Doubtfire. Maybe people think it's bad, but like because I would say it is better art than this, you
Hmm.
can revisit it and be like, oh shit, like the mom was completely right to be like no, and
Yeah.
even to the point where I remember being like, how dare they not like side with her at the end of the movie? I'm like, well, I guess yeah, he decided to make up a completely new character instead of just doing what the
The
judge
court
said
ordered
was and
shit
get a
is yeah.
job.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just like, oh, okay, so
It's
you
like, yeah,
just
maybe don't trust him with the
yeah,
kids. Maybe
because
you do need to be like, actually, no, you can't have custody.
yeah, yeah.
But again, it's because we care. So like people can say it's not a good movie, it's bad writing, but
Mhm.
it knew who its audience was and was
Sure.
able to be like, you're going to side with him
Yes.
because we will put efforts into making you care about the main character.
Versus this does not do that. It does not make me care about the main character. It's just like it's a lot of telling, not showing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it feels weird because at the same time it's like, oh, this is something for adults, but we don't trust adults to think about or process the content that they're doing. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, that's a weird position to be in to put
Yeah,
this.
it feels like they're like we'll say it's for adults, but we know who this is for. And
Mm,
maybe in that way it does know who the audience is, which is teenage boys that are like, yeah, sick. And
yeah.
now I get to see boobies. But like,
Yep, it would have worked on me. Just
I guess I just wasn't old enough. I was just a kid being like, I don't know, this is boring, kind of. I don't.
mm,
And when I say that, even watching it now, the dropout score a lot, so it's just the talking, and everyone has a very specific way of delivering their lines. It's kind of like Todd McFarlane at the beginning of the show. Like it's very like, eh, yeah, it's methodical and not as like it's not as snappy as it could be, especially if you're
yep.
dealing with two cops.
Hmm.
Usually that would be more rat-a-tat, and this is everyone's kind of just giving it a certain energy, and obviously that works for people. I'm not
Hmm.
here to say it's objectively bad, but it
Hmm.
didn't work for me as a kid, and it doesn't work for me here. So maybe
Yeah.
I need to grow up. Maybe that's what I'm learning.
Um, I think there's one quippy line in there that I was like, oh man, why'd you deliver it like that? Which is when like Twitch and like who's the other cop?
Sam.
There, Sam. When Twitch goes like he does all this hard work to prove Sam wrong, and Twitch goes like, "That's why I do this. It's for
Mm-hmm.
your praise." And I'm like, that's the driest. That should have been so much more sarcastic and like tones of
Mm-hmm.
different delivery. Like, no, it makes me feel like
It's
you meant that. Like,
it's funny
what?
when you're like, it's there's this one line in there. I'm like, I know what line it is. Like that's how like dry things feel to me and off.
Yep.
That I'm like, oh, the one time I actually liked something happening, and it's that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's some weird decision making for sure. And I feel like this is coming out of the 90s. Now retroactively we call it toxic masculinity of the lone ranger, the lone wolf, and all that kind of stuff, that rhetoric. And the challenge with that rhetoric is like every single time the lone wolf is explored through any sort of media, instantaneously the thing that we know toward the end is that he connects with other people, so he can't be a lone wolf anymore. And I'm
Yeah,
just like
and you need to
this
get him there quicker than your last episode.
exactly. And this, it's a full season of lone wolf nonsense until you're right. He connects with someone finally at the end of the season. And I'm like, great, great. It took us 6 episodes to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm not convinced that season two is going to continue off on this mark. I'm sure, like, okay, cool. He did his thing and he's still going to watch creepily from afar and all that kind of stuff. And now maybe Violator is going to be more involved in this. Maybe we're going to spend some time in hell. I don't know. But I'm just like, what
Yeah,
is happening here?
no idea.
Yeah.
Well, do you have anything else you want to say? I didn't have anything really positive to say, so I feel bad. But
I no, I don't have much positive to say either. I all I am saying though is I am looking forward to seeing whether or not my theory of season one equals act one, season two equals act two, season three equals act three is true. And if
mm-hmm.
that's the case, I would be so much more disappointed.
Really,
Yeah, because it means that they really didn't learn anything from season one, and they're just like, yeah, we're gonna keep on the same course and all that kind of stuff. And to the point,
I feel like I
the,
just respect that they were like, we had a plan.
that's fair. Okay, that's fair. I'll probably let that marinate a little bit more, but it's just maybe it's the idea of like maybe that's why it got 8 out of 10 on IMDb is because
Yeah,
maybe all
I
3 seasons was a complete series.
I think there would be the element of people who just like Spawn, and maybe this
Hmm.
is the way they like to see their Spawn.
Sure.
And there might be people who are like, yeah, you know what? It was they did a good job telling their story, and they're just thinking about the whole season because this is
Hmm.
'97. While I understand that IMDb might have been around, I doubt it was, but it might have been around.
Hmm.
It would have always been a retroactive rating.
Yes.
Like it's
Yeah.
not like a real time rating. You
Yeah.
would have the ability to be like, yeah, I liked that show.
Hmm.
I remember I have fond memories of that.
Yeah.
So I think
Because
there's room for both things there.
Yeah, because I remember what the internet was in the 90s, and it was if you were to tell me IMDb had this rating system back then, I'd be like, I don't believe you because the internet was so weird back then. It was so like just GIFs for a lot of websites. I'm not saying it was for IMDb, but to me, the whole social element of leaving reviews, leaving comments, leaving all that kind of stuff, that really started with like Facebook and like online shopping, in my
Oh no,
opinion.
IMDb was definitely the
Oh, they
message
were
board
gathering?
was legendary.
Gotcha. Okay. Then I
Oh
just didn't know the
yeah,
IMDb back in
IMDb
the yeah.
was a wild place to be.
Gotcha.
I could spend hours with people arguing over how old Kevin McAllister really is in the IMDb message board. Hours I could spend and that's not me reading slowly. It's just like no, people really went at it. They had to get rid of the message boards.
Like I said, the internet was a wild time in the
Yeah.
90s. It was just we would do shit like
They're like,
that.
he's a little kid. Obviously, he's lying about his age. No, he knows his age. He's not an idiot. Like, people really got into it. No, yeah, I think it will be good to see how this all develops
Yeah,
in later episodes. But
I agree.
I will, unless you have anything else to add, I'm going to
Nope.
rate it now.
Yeah, let's rate this thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4.5.
Yeah, I'm sitting at a 5 out of 10.
Excellent.
All style, no substance. Todd McFarlane, as far as I'm concerned, you're the Michael Bay of animation.
Fair enough. All right. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. You can find us at TDF Spoiled on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube. You can also go to tdferything.com/spoiledrotten for all of our episodes, and email us at spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. And we're on most podcast platforms, so rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, and get in touch with us. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Cheers!
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.